The one thing I would love to know from Draymond Green is what's really important to him. Is it important to him that Jordan Poole is not on this team, or does he not care? Is it important to him that the Warriors are going to the finish line with him and Steph and Clay, or is that not important to him? Is it important to him? Is he such a winner and such a, he so craves winning a title that he wants, to be surrounded by the best possible players, and he wants to win a title, and he's going to go somewhere else if he feels like he's got a better chance to win that title? Is that important to him? We do have a quote from him saying just at the end of this year that he would like to go out with the same guys he came in with. But does that mean the same organization, or does that mean the same players? Like, what if the Warriors said to Draymond, hey, Draymond, we'll extend you 3 years, $30 million. We'll give you $90 million starting, this upcoming year. You get $30 million a year. But if we do this, we're gonna pivot off of Klay Thompson and we're gonna move him somewhere else. Is that a deal breaker for him, or is he okay with that? It's like I'd like to know. I mean, we're never gonna really find that out, but I would like to know
actions
what
speak louder than
is
words.
vital.
I agree with you, Larry. And 888-957-9570. Do you want Draymond Green to still be a Golden State Warrior? I think that is ultimately the baseline question, because Draymond did say he wants to go out with the guys he came in with, and you take him at his word, and then you see this latest report, which is he's going to opt out of his contract. So if you're opting out and you want to go and play elsewhere because the money's not right or whatever your reason is, well, then we can't really take you at your word, because his words were, and this was within hours of them losing to the Lakers, and he said, I want to go out with the guys that I came in with, indicating to me that he was going to either opt in or sign a new deal with the Golden State Warriors and play the final 3 years or so. And there's a quote he also had about not wanting to play basketball until he's 40. I'm really only want to play for another 4 years after that. I've always said my magic number is 15 years. Once I get to 15, that's it. I'm cool. Go enjoy my life. Go on to my next thing. Leave it to the young guys to take it from there. So if that's the case, and Draymond's looking for just 4 more years, maybe that's what's motivating him in terms of this next contract, which will be his last.
Yeah, and then, his representation, those guys get paid to make sure he gets every penny possible. So, and I would never fault a guy for trying to get every penny possible, because these careers are finite. They don't last forever. You got to live the rest of your life. None of these players, if they have a decent financial advisor, should ever have any other employment. And this guy's got millions coming to him from TNT.
Exactly.
And any other thing. He could be somebody's GM, somebody's head coach. But what if he said to the Warriors, hey, you know what? I just don't want to play with Jordan Poole anymore. And now, we're hearing maybe today Dunleavy's comment about Poole, maybe this all does fit together. Maybe Draymond opted out and this was announced today. And maybe the Warriors have said, you know what? If it's you or Poole, we're siding with Poole because of longevity. I mean, the Niners sided with Steve Young over Joe Montana because of longevity, because Steve had more years left on his career than Joe. Are the Warriors going to do the same with Jordan Poole and just say, take a fan favorite and a key cog and a guy that's beloved by the fans and just say goodbye because Poole's younger? Simple as that.
Yeah, younger, and, if you want to talk about two timelines, which is not something the Warriors ever created, it was a fan and a media creation, but if you're Joe Lacob and you plan on owning this team for longer than 3 or 4 more years, and I would assume that he does because this thing is a cash cow, and Joe Lacob seems to be a guy who loves owning an NBA team, especially this NBA team, so if you would take the assumption that he wants to still own this thing in 5-10 years, then Jordan Poole is a more attractive asset than Draymond Green, who has said, his quote, I just read it to you, he only wants to play 4 more years. So are you going to get rid of Jordan Poole and Kuminga and maybe the draft pick and go all in on the next 3 years, knowing that after 3 or 4 more years, Steph's gone, Clay's gone, Draymond's gone, Wiggins has a player option, Kevon will be 31. What then as an owner of this organization?
Well, and the arena, Dibs, is so unbelievably opulent and fancy, and it's such a palace that I think that was what led them to the 2 timeline thing to begin with. It's like the idea that you're going to drive your franchise off the cliff in 3 years and have a 3 or 4 year non-relevant rebuild on your hands, it's going to be hard to get people to pay the chase prices for those 3 years. I mean, I would think. I mean, and maybe that's part of the thinking as well,
right,
going with the younger player. I mean, I wouldn't. That makes perfect sense. I don't know that it will work out, but I do understand that thinking, right? That, hey, you need to extend this as much as possible. We need to give people a competitive product to support in this expensive arena, not just for the next year or 2 years, but actually the next 5, 6, 7 years.
But also, if you're Joe Lacob, you could think of it in terms of, all right, if we get rid of Jordan Poole, if we trade Poole and Kuminga, and then Steph, Clay, and Dre, we play out the end of their string, at that point, we're going to have the cap room to go out there and get whatever free agent we want, because we've proven that we're going to put a winning product out there, so we can then go out and get Giannis Antetokounmpo or whoever the big ticket free agent is in 2027 or 2028 when you need to reboot this thing. So it's not only, we need to have young players in the pipeline. I think it's better to have young players under team control, guys that the fans already know. But if you're Joe Lacob and he's already said as much, we will win. We will go out there and win no matter what. John Dickinson going to join us at 4:15. He had an interesting poll that he put out on Twitter. I'm going to run it by you, Larry, in just a second. But first, Tamir in Oakland. We're asking the question, Draymond Green, do you want him to still be here or not? Tamir weighs in here. What's going on, Tamir?
Hey, what's going on? I'm going to say no, and hell no, I don't want Draymond anymore. I think that we're living in the past too much with him. Like, everyone's saying trade the younger guys. The league is getting younger and more athletic. Draymond is wanting maybe $30 million a year with a hurt back and a dude that doesn't produce on offense. And everyone goes to facilitation. In the playoffs, teams knew he was going to facilitate, and they backed off, and they're guarding the passing lane. So if you're not a threat, what's the point of me cashing out $30 million? And you guys, I don't think Lacob wants to just put all his eggs in one basket, because you got to think of the future too. We can't just go all in for 1 year. And if we get older vets too, they'll still get probably beat by the younger, more athletic team as the Denver Nuggets. Those dudes are young, so you have to have someone to match that young athleticism.
That's a good point.
Thanks, Tamir.
I mean, I don't necessarily agree with his assessment, but nothing he's saying there is not true. I mean, Draymond is getting older. There are limitations to his game. He's not an offensive player, but you're talking about a guy who averaged over 7 rebounds a game, who averaged close to 7 assists per game, almost a block per game, a steal per game. So, I mean, he's a basketball genius. And it's like what I heard from Dunleavy and what I'm hearing from Kerr is they want more basketball IQ. They want guys who know how to play. If you're talking about, the caller's thinking kind of a younger kind of a route, but they're thinking Chris Paul. So it's like you're not, I understand where you're coming from, but you're not really on the same page as the franchise. I think the franchise seems like they want guys with high basketball IQ. I mean, look, just the style that they play. I mean, they play a body movement, ball movement style of play that requires you to have basketball instincts and high basketball IQ. And I think they look at Jonathan Kuminga and say, man, this guy's got a world of ability, but he needs development in that area. And I'm getting the sense that they don't want to spend the time developing him, but maybe just flip him somewhere else for somebody who plays more like they play.
Who's a little bit more astute in terms of their own athletic development. And Kuminga's only 20, so to expect him to be able to hit the ground running at all in the NBA is a stretch, let alone when you're playing this sort of intellectual style of basketball that the Warriors play. And I think the other piece of it is Jordan Poole, his skill set doesn't necessarily mesh with what the Warriors are trying to do offensively either. He's a very good one-on-one player. He's not as good moving without the ball in a catch-and-shoot mode. He's a guy who has the ball in his hands and can break you down 14 different ways and score at all 3 levels when he's given that license, but the Warriors don't really play that way. So Jordan Poole, I think, is kind of stuck between the way he wants to play and the way the Warriors like to play. And so I think that he might be a guy who can be more useful elsewhere. I want to run this by you, Larry, because John Dickinson had an interesting Twitter poll, and he says, what winds up happening between Draymond Green and the Warriors? he signs for 3 years for 70 or 75 million. He signs for 3 years and 90 million. He signs with the Warriors for less than 70 million, or he signs with another team.
I say he signs with the Warriors for 3 years and 90 million.
3 and 90. Wow. Okay.
Because I do think that, making that, he wants to get all of his money. And I don't think he's gonna give them. I mean, I would love it if he signed for 3 years and 75 million. Took 25. I think that would be the reasonable approach. But I don't think it's about reason. It's about leverage. And I think he has the leverage. I think he has the leverage because the best player on the team and maybe the best player in the history of the franchise is is a guy that he makes better. That's one.
Yeah. Then
leverage point number two is the head coach has already stated that they're not contenders at all without him. So he's got the leverage. So, and he was going to make, if he hadn't opted out, Draymond was going to be making 27.5 this year.
Yeah.
So I don't think he's opting out to take less this year.
Agreed.
I think he's opting out to get more. And I know people could make the argument, well, he's not getting less. He'd be getting a 3-year deal. No, I get it. Overall, he'd be getting more guaranteed money. But I don't think that's the way he's looking at it. He's looking at, hey, I can play this year for 27.5, or I can opt out and play for 30. And I think he's opting out to play for 30.
If he plays for 30, he's not playing 1 year for 30. He'd be playing for 3 years and 90.
Right.
And that's where, and the leader, by the way, in the results from JD's poll is that he signs for 3 years, 70 to 75 million. And I think that's pie in the sky thinking from Warriors fans. I'm with you. You're not going to opt out at 27.5 and take a deal that has an average annual value of 25, especially when Jordan Poole is going to be making more. I cannot imagine Draymond Green returning to the Warriors and making less money, at least in the first year, than Jordan Poole. I can't see Draymond being able to sublimate his ego to that level. The questions about Klay as well out there. Klay's got 1 year left on his deal.